Hi, today we're going to talk about indirect and direct characterization. Think about when you meet someone new, like say someone comes into our class, we form opinions, either good or bad or indifferent, about that person and their personality based on different things. In literature, the process by which the writer or an author reveals the personality of his or her characters is through characterization. And there are two methods or venues by which authors choose to do this, either direct or indirect. The main effects of characterization is it makes characters real to us. Good characterization makes us care about the characters. We want to know what happens to them. Poor characterization makes characters uninteresting and static. They don't change a lot, and we really could care less what happens about them over the course of the story, the play, or the short story. But good characterization, and I'm very pleased if you watch movies, TV shows, and good books, you want to know from page 1 to the last page, does the heroine or the hero make it? Do they get the brass ring? Do they get there happily ever after? So the two ways are direct and indirect characterization. Direct characterization is where the narrator states facts about the character's personality. This is direct. Look at your example. The patient boy and the quiet girl were both well-mannered and did not disobey their mother. So the author is directly telling us. So think of direct characterization as telling. Direct is just telling. It's where the author tells us what he wants us to know. There's no wiggle room. We don't have to do any detective work. It is what it is. But you and I know it's never going to be that easy. Authors typically use indirect characterization because they want us to decide for ourselves who we think the heroes are. Who do we want to care about in this work? What do we think that person is like without them giving us all the answers? And there is an acronym that we're going to use to reveal characterization indirectly. And we call it the STEAL acronym. Speech, thoughts, effect on others toward the characters, actions, and looks. Speech. What do they say? How do they say it? Thoughts. What is revealed through their private thoughts and feelings? Effect on others toward the character, the relationships. How do they interact with other people? How do they behave in reaction to other people? Actions, what do they do? How do they behave? And looks, how do they dress? And what is their physical appearance? So let's talk more about speech. Speech is the exact word to give us insight into their character or how they say something. If the author chooses to have a character speaking in slang and another character speaking in standard written English, we can draw conclusions about that character's personality. Thoughts. Look at the example. Frank insisted he wasn't tired or hungry, but really he was both. The long plane trip with 2 delays had left his patience in shreds. However, he didn't want Aunt Judy to go to any trouble. What kind of person do you think Frank is? It hinges on this, however. He's tired or hungry, but he doesn't want his aunt to cook because he wants to go to bed and he wants her to not have to go through the trouble. So couldn't we say that Frank is considerate? Because he's thinking of others. Relationships. What they say to each other and how they act towards each other. This is a great example. Michael hugged Annie before he got out of the car. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. She smiled and replied, "You always say that and you never do." He laughed. "Okay, I'll email then." "You'd better," Annie grinned, but her eyes were sad. What does this conversation reveal about each other's personality? Is Michael considerate? Does he keep his word? And is Annie really good at hiding her feelings? And the hint is they're in a relationship, obviously, because he hugged. She's smiling back and forth at him, but her eyes were sad. Their actions. Actions reveal a lot about people. For examples, they can tell us if they're helpful and encouraging or mean and mocking. If you look at the actions of the guy in the picture, he's helping the young lady learn how to ride a bike. Whereas the two girls are obviously talking about somebody because they're pointing and they're making faces. Your actions can tell us about your personality, why you do what you do, your motivation, or your situation. Let's look at this example. It was a cold October day when Christy's alarm buzzed at 6 a.m. She pulled on her clothes and headed for the door. She carefully adjusted her headphones, then pulled the sleeves out of her turtleneck over her hands to keep out of the cold. Here goes 10 miles, she thought as she began her run. I have to be ready for the spring marathon. What actions does Christy take to get ready? And what do they say about her? The biggest thing to me is when the alarm went off at 6 o'clock, she got up. She pulled on her clothes and headed for the door. She got her headphones ready for her music. She was prepared for the cold, and she knew that she's doing this to get ready for the spring marathon. So I'm thinking that Christy is responsible because of her actions and that she's determined. The author doesn't say Christy is determined. The author says nothing. We infer by her actions. Looks. This is where we, as humans, tend to characterize people, either good, bad, or indifferent. Through the physical details, a writer can imply or suggest a character's personality, how they're dressed, their posture, their facial expressions. Look at this example. The man seated in the parked limousine had short hair, piercing eyes, and a serious gaze. He was dressed neatly in a starched white shirt and striped tie. So how would we characterize this gentleman? I would say he's a businessman, either coming back from a business trip or going on a business trip, based on his physical appearance. That is a great example of how authors can imply or suggest a personality based on physical appearance. So what I want you to do is use this knowledge as you complete your characterization and diction work in Of Mice and Men. We're going to revisit this when we start talking more about characterization in Unit 2.